Matters you do not need motivation, you need decision. Motivation fades, decision remains. Heaven responds to direction, not emotion. Someone listening to this is waiting for circumstances to change before they change, but Michael says change precedes breakthrough, not follows it. If you wait for things to feel safe, you will never move. Faith moves when comfort argues against it. This is the moment where small obedience carries massive weight. A phone call you have been avoiding, a habit you have been excusing, a boundary you have been postponing, a truth you have been refusing to admit. These are not small things, they are hinges on which futures turn. God is not asking for dramatic gestures, he is asking for honest steps. One step of obedience today can interrupt years of regret tomorrow. You are closer to restoration than you think, but also closer to consequence than you realize. That is why urgency is present. Heaven is not threatening, it is warning, because warning is love in action. Michael says, tell them this is the last season where delay feels harmless. After this, delay will feel costly, not because God changes but because the window narrows. The grace available now is grace for change, not grace for continuation. Do not misuse mercy. Mercy is meant to lead you home, not make you comfortable far away. The heaviness you feel will lift the moment you decide. Direction releases pressure, indecision multiplies it. Heaven is waiting for movement, not perfection. Return with humility, act with courage. Choose alignment and watch how quickly protection begins to rebuild. The path back is not complicated, it is narrow and clear. You already know the first step, take it now. The pressure you are sensing right now is not meant to crush you, it is meant to focus you. Archangel Michael says when heaven applies pressure, it is not to destroy but to separate truth from excuses. You have been living divided, saying you want God's will but negotiating the terms, saying you want peace but refusing change, saying you want protection but resisting alignment. This division is exhausting and heaven knows it. That is why this moment feels heavy, because a decision will end the inner war. One way or the other, the season of staying in between is ending. You cannot keep one foot in obedience and one foot in compromise and expect stability. Michael says instability is the symptom of delayed obedience, not spiritual attack. You have prayed against things God already asked you to walk away from. You have rebuked what discipline was meant to remove. This is not condemnation, this is clarity. God corrects those he intends to keep. Those he lets drift without correction are the ones in danger. This message is proof you are still being pursued, not punished, but pursuit has an expiration when it is consistently resisted. There are patterns in your life that God did not design to survive your next level, and they are already weakening. That is why some connections feel strained, why certain comforts feel empty, why old habits no longer satisfy. That is not loss, it is release beginning. Do not cling to what heaven is loosening. You are not losing yourself, you are shedding what never belonged. Michael says the fear you feel about letting go is rooted in identity confusion. You think those things define you, but they were only fillers during seasons of immaturity. God is calling you into a version of yourself that cannot coexist with them. That version requires clarity, boundaries, discipline, and humility. You have underestimated how much authority returns when alignment is restored. Peace is not a feeling, it is a position. And that position is found inside obedience. The longer you delay, the harder obey. Withdrawn protection can still be restored, but only through humility. Pride delays healing, honesty accelerates it. This is the moment to cut agreement with the lie that you have time. Later is not promised, alignment is needed now. Heaven is not impressed by emotional reactions, it responds to decisions. If this message stirs you but nothing changes afterward, then stirring becomes wasted movement. God is not looking for fear, he is looking for obedience rooted in trust, the trust that says even if I do not understand the outcome, I will honor the instruction. Some of you have been asking God for clarity while ignoring the clarity already given. Stop asking for new answers and start acting on the old ones. That is where power returns. Michael says protection lifts when alignment lifts, not all at once but gradually. Just as misalignment formed gradually, peace returns decision by decision, boundary by boundary, truth by truth. You may lose things that were never meant to survive your next season, and that loss may feel painful at first, but it will feel like freedom later. Do not confuse attachment with purpose. Purpose feels demanding at first but peaceful in the long run. Attachment feels comforting at first but destructive over time. Heaven is inviting you to choose the kind of pain that heals rather than the kind that destroys. Discipline now or regret later, surrender now or consequence later. The choice is not between good and bad, it is between aligned and misaligned. The reason this message is urgent is because momentum is building either toward restoration or toward collapse. Momentum does not stop on its own, it responds to intervention, and this message is that intervention. Do not ignore it, do not explain it away, do not treat it as content, treat it as instruction. Michael has done his part, heaven has spoken clearly, the next move is yours. The reason this moment feels intense is because alignment is being demanded, not suggested. Heaven is not whispering anymore, it is clarifying. You have been standing between two voices, the one that comforts you and the one that corrects you, and you already know which one you have been listening to more often. Archangel Michael says correction is not rejection, it is protection, but protection only works when it is accepted. You cannot keep asking God to bless a direction he already warned you about. You cannot keep praying for peace while choosing patterns that steal it. This is the moment where honesty becomes more powerful than prayer, because God responds fastest to truth. There are habits you normalized that quietly eroded your discernment, relationships you tolerated that diluted your calling, compromises you justified that slowly shifted your direction. None of this happened overnight, and that is why the consequence feels sudden, even though heaven has been watching it form step by step. Michael says tell them the end they fear is not inevitable but the change they resist is unavoidable. Either you let go willingly or life will remove it forcefully, not because God is angry but because he is committed to your purpose more than your comfort. You were not spared repeatedly to stay stagnant, you were preserved because something through you still matters. Time feels thin now because opportunity is compressing. This is the mercy window. Narrowing, not closing yet narrowing. You feel it when distractions no longer satisfy, when old escapes feel empty, when silence feels loud. That is not boredom, that is calling. Resurfacing. God is not asking you to be perfect, he is asking you to be aligned. Alignment does not start with behavior, it starts with surrender, a quiet decision that says I stop arguing with conviction, I stop delaying obedience, I stop pretending I do not know what to do. Michael says heaven honors movement. Even if it is small, when it is honest, you do not have to fix everything. Today you Listen carefully because this is not a random message and it is not here by accident. Archangel Michael is trying to reach you and heaven does not interrupt without reason. This is not meant for entertainment, this is meant for awakening. There is a life approaching, a critical turning point, a chapter is closing, a season is ending, and before that moment arrives something important must be revealed. You have felt it lately, a heaviness you cannot explain, a sense that time feels different, faster, thinner. Like something important is approaching, that is not imagination, that is awareness. Awakening. Archangel Michael speaks when urgency reaches its highest level, when silence is no longer mercy and delay becomes dangerous. He says this is not about fear, this is about love, because spiritual destruction never arrives suddenly, it arrives after many ignored warnings. God has been patient, opportunities were given, protection was extended. Time was stretched far beyond what was deserved, but conviction was silenced. Calling was postponed and truth was negotiated with comfort. You know exactly what God has been asking you to walk away from, and you know exactly what he has been asking you to return to, but distraction replaced devotion and pride argued with truth. Still mercy remained until now. This moment is fragile, powerful and rare. If you are hearing this, it means the door is still open but it is no longer wide. Heaven is watching, not your emotions but your decision. Someone connected to you is standing at a life-altering crossroads, and if direction does not change, loss will follow, not because God is cruel but crossroads, and if direction does not change, loss will follow, not because God is cruel but because consequences exist where truth is ignored. This is the final interruption before impact, a pause before collapse, an invitation before permanence. Michael says protection follows alignment, and when alignment fades, protection weakens, not because God abandons you but because he will not endorse a path. Listen carefully because this is not a random message and it is not here by accident. Archangel Michael is trying to reach you and heaven does not interrupt without reason. This is not meant for entertainment, this is meant for awakening. There is a life approaching, a critical turning point, a chapter is closing, a season is ending, and before that moment arrives something important must be revealed. You have felt it lately, a heaviness you cannot explain, a sense that time feels different, faster, thinner. Like something important is approaching, that is not imagination, that is awareness. Awakening. Archangel Michael speaks when urgency reaches its highest level, when silence is no longer mercy and delay becomes dangerous. He says this is not about fear, this is about love, because spiritual destruction never arrives suddenly, it arrives after many ignored warnings. God has been patient, opportunities were given, protection was extended. Time was stretched far beyond what was deserved, but conviction was silenced. Calling was postponed and truth was negotiated with comfort. You know exactly what God has been asking you to walk away from, and you know exactly what he has been asking you to return to, but distraction replaced devotion and pride argued with truth. Still mercy remained until now. This moment is fragile, powerful and rare. If you are hearing